Think about what happened to your money last year. Not the mortgage, not the car payment, not the insurance, the other money. The cash that moved through your accounts quietly and left no visible trace. The USDA estimates that the average American household throws away between 30 and 40% of the food they purchase. That's between $1,500 and $2,000 per year in groceries that travel from the store to the refrigerator to the trash without ever becoming a meal. The average American also spends approximately $1,100 annually on coffee, most of it purchased at drive-thrus and cafes. And according to 8AA's annual driving cost study, the total cost of owning and operating a new vehicle now exceeds $12,000 per year when you factor in depreciation, insurance, fuel, financing, and maintenance. Those three categories alone, food waste, coffee, and car costs, represent over $14,000 annually for a typical household. Most people couldn't explain exactly where that money went. Each individual decision felt reasonable at the time. Here's what almost every personal finance video gets wrong about this problem. The solution is not a complex budget spreadsheet. It's not a dramatic lifestyle downgrade or eliminating every pleasure in the name of financial discipline. The biggest savings in a typical household don't come from dramatic moves. They come from boring, repeatable habits that most people would never bring up at a dinner party because they sound too ordinary to be worth mentioning. No novelty, no excitement, just calculable, compounding financial impact that, when you run the numbers, produces outcomes that look like something remarkable even though the habits themselves are almost aggressively mundane. My name is Marcus, and I've spent years analyzing the specific daily behaviors that separate people who build significant wealth on ordinary incomes from people who earn good salaries and have almost nothing to show for it. If you're working toward financial independence but feel like the numbers never quite add up, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if this information is useful to you. Let me break down where the money actually goes, because the numbers are more significant than most people realize. A new car loses roughly 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. By year 5, the typical new vehicle has lost roughly 60% of its original purchase price. That depreciation is a cost you absorb regardless of how many miles you drive. The previous owner of a 3-year-old used car already paid most of that curve. You don't have to. The annual cost difference between a newer financed vehicle and a well-maintained used alternative, combining depreciation savings, lower insurance, and eliminated loan interest, frequently exceeds $4,000 to $6,000 per year for identical transportation function. On food, even conservative estimates place American household waste at 15 to 20% of grocery purchases. At $500 per month in groceries, that's $75 to $100 per month in food that expires before it's used. The secondary cost is what happens when the refrigerator looks full, but nothing is dinner ready. That gap gets filled by takeout. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American household spends approximately $3,400 per year on food away from home beyond what they budgeted for. Most of that spending is composed of default decisions made in moments of planning fatigue. The coffee number is smaller in isolation, but matters as a behavioral signal. At $5 per purchased coffee 5 days per week, 50 weeks per year, the annual cost is $1,250. The home alternative costs approximately 50 cents per cup. The $1,100 difference feels modest. Invested at 8% returns over 25 years, it becomes approximately $81,000. Here are the 10 habits with specific numbers behind each one. Habit number 1. Drive an older car. This is the highest single impact habit on this list. Here's the mechanism most people underestimate. When you finance a new $35,000 vehicle, you pay for the full purchase price plus loan interest. When the car depreciates $7,000 in its first year, that depreciation comes out of your net worth. A 3-year-old version of the same vehicle has already passed through the steepest part of that depreciation curve. The previous owner absorbed the loss. The car still functions identically in every practical sense. The annual ownership cost difference, combining depreciation savings, lower insurance, and eliminated loan interest, typically runs $4,000 to $6,000 per year between a newer financed vehicle and a used alternative purchased in cash. $4,000 per year invested at 8% annual returns over 30 years becomes approximately $490,000. $6,000 per year becomes approximately $735,000. The car doesn't get you there faster. It doesn't make you more productive. The habit is simply keeping a reliable used vehicle and letting the difference compound. Habit number 2. Meals on rotation. Before you roll your eyes at another video telling you to cook at home more often, let me be specific about what the rotation element means, because it's the piece most people skip and the reason most attempts to cook more at home eventually fail. Meals on rotation means selecting 8 to 12 meals your household genuinely enjoys and cycling through them consistently. Not a rigid meal plan. A rotating repertoire of familiar meals that use overlapping ingredients that you can prepare without consulting a recipe and that reduce grocery decisions to near zero. The financial mechanism this addresses is decision fatigue combined with planning absence. When there is no answer to what's for dinner at 6:30 in the evening, the answer becomes takeout. Meals on rotation eliminate that gap entirely. Within 60 days, grocery spending typically drops by 15 to 25%, and restaurant spending declines proportionally. Habit number 3. Eat what you buy. The USDA consistently finds that American households waste between 30 and 40% of the food they purchase. The majority isn't from dramatic overpurchasing. It's from produce and perishables that seemed like good ideas at the store and quietly expired in the refrigerator. According to ReFed, fresh produce accounts for roughly 40% of all household food waste by weight. The correction is simple. Perform a weekly inventory of perishables before shopping and build the week's meals around what already exists before purchasing anything new. Households that implement this consistently reduce food waste by approximately 50% within 60 days. At current grocery prices, that's $60 to $100 per month recovered from food that was otherwise going directly to the trash. Habit number 4. Make coffee at home. Making coffee at home is not primarily about the coffee. It's about building the daily practice of preparing things in advance rather than paying a premium for having someone else do it. Coffee is the highest frequency application of that habit. Applied every day, it trains a default instinct toward preparation rather than convenience purchasing. That instinct extends to food, to errands, to dozens of other daily categories where the prepared option costs significantly less than the purchased-in-the-moment alternative. The coffee numbers are still real. $1,100 per year. Invested at 8% over 25 years, that's $81,000 from one daily habit. Habit number 5. Bring your own food. A purchased lunch at an average urban cafe costs between $12 and $20. A packed lunch using home ingredients costs approximately $2 to $4. At a $10 daily difference, 5 days per week for 48 working weeks, the annual gap is $2,400 per person. For a household of 2 adults who both implement this habit consistently, the combined annual savings exceeds $4,800 per year. This habit extends to airports, sports venues, and road trips, where captive audience pricing inflates basic food and beverages to 3 to 5 times their market rate. Habit number 6. Shop in person. A study published in the Journal of Marketing Research found that consumers shopping in physical stores spend approximately 13% less per trip than consumers making equivalent purchases online. The mechanism is friction. Online shopping with stored payment information and one-click purchasing has eliminated nearly all natural resistance from the buying process. The path from seeing something to owning it is 4 clicks and 30 seconds. In-person shopping requires physical effort and real payment. Each step is a decision point where a purchase can be reconsidered. For households that shift primarily to in-person shopping for clothing and household goods, discretionary spending typically drops 15 to 25%, $540 to $900 annually, from a change in where you shop rather than what you buy. Habit number 7. Build a capsule wardrobe and stop buying clothes. The average American spends approximately $1,800 per year on clothing. A capsule wardrobe, typically defined as 30 to 40 well-chosen items that coordinate with each other and cover the specific contexts of your actual life, solves both the financial problem and the daily decision fatigue simultaneously. When your wardrobe is complete, you know exactly what you own and exactly what you need when something wears out. You also know when you need nothing. And most of the time, with a complete wardrobe, you need nothing. Moving from $1,800 in annual clothing spending to $500 saves $1,300 per year. Over 20 years at 8% returns, that single habit produces $64,000. Habit number 8. Pay yourself first and automate it. This is the structural habit that determines whether every other habit on this list actually builds wealth or simply creates slightly more comfortable spending. Without it, the money you recover from food waste and coffee and vehicle costs tends to evaporate into diffuse lifestyle expansion. With it, that money accumulates automatically before you can redirect it. The implementation that actually works is invisible money. The transfer has to execute on payday before the money enters your mental accounting as available for spending. Not when you assess whether you can afford to save this month. Not after you review the bills. On the same day your paycheck arrives, set it up once. Then, stop thinking about it. According to research published in the Journal of Economic Perspectives, households with automatic saving structures accumulate 2 to 3 times more wealth over 5 years than households with identical incomes and identical stated intentions to save without automation. The difference is not discipline. It's whether the behavior happens automatically or requires a fresh decision every month. Monthly decisions get overridden by monthly circumstances. Automatic transfers don't. Habit number 9. Live 2 years behind your income. This habit directly addresses lifestyle creep, the mechanism by which income growth produces almost zero improvement in financial security for most households. Here's how it works. You earn $50,000 per year and live comfortably at that level. You receive a promotion to $65,000. Within 12 months, your spending has risen to approximately $65,000. You've taken on a slightly higher car payment. The apartment is slightly nicer. The restaurants are slightly better. Nothing feels excessive. The problem is that your financial security improved by essentially nothing because the entire income increase was absorbed by lifestyle expansion. Living 2 years behind your income means maintaining the lifestyle of your previous income level for at least 2 years after any significant increase. When your salary rises from $50,000 to $65,000, you continue living as though you earned $50,000 for 2 full years. The $15,000 annual gap goes entirely to savings and investment during that window. At 8% returns, $15,000 per year for 2 years puts $30,000 to work compounding. By year 10, the household that implemented the lifestyle lag is hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead of the household that immediately upgraded with each raise. Habit number 10. Build a hobby that makes money. This habit differs from the previous 9. The first 9, reduce spending. This one increases income, but specifically from time you were already spending on something you enjoy. A monetizable hobby is an activity you would pursue regardless of any financial return that also has income potential. Photography, writing, woodworking, tutoring, cooking, graphic design, fitness coaching. The financial case for a monetizable hobby is not that it will generate transformative income immediately. It's that it generates something above zero from time that would otherwise produce zero financial output. A weekend woodworker who sells occasional pieces generates $3,000 to $8,000 per year. A person who tutors 2 students per week adds $3,000 to $5,000 annually with 6 to 8 hours of monthly commitment. $3,000 per year at 8% returns over 25 years becomes approximately $229,000. From a hobby. The most important element is starting before the income feels meaningful. Now here's what these 10 habits produce when you aggregate the savings and run the actual numbers. Consider 2 households with identical incomes of $85,000 per year and the same starting point at age 35. Household A follows average American financial behavior: 2 relatively new vehicles, regular restaurant spending, daily purchase coffee, seasonal wardrobe updates, every income increase absorbed into lifestyle. After all expenses, they save approximately 5% of their income, $4,250 per year. Household B does nothing exciting. Used vehicles 3 to 5 years old, meals on rotation cooked at home, packed lunches and home coffee, a complete wardrobe they've stopped adding to. The last raise went to their investment account. A freelance photography side project adds approximately $4,000 per year. Household B saves 20% of income, plus the $4,000 from the hobby. $21,000 per year directed to investments, same income, same starting age, same 8% annual return. Here is where they arrive at age 65. Household A saving $4,250 per year for 30 years, approximately $520,000. Household B saving $21,000 per year for 30 years, approximately $2,560,000. The difference is $2,040,000, generated by 10 boring habits. Thomas Stanley and William Danko's landmark research on American millionaires, published as The Millionaire Next Door, found that the majority of American millionaires live in modest homes, drive ordinary vehicles, and would be visually indistinguishable from neighbors who are not millionaires. The correlation between visible displays of wealth and actual financial security is, in many cases, negative rather than positive. Let me show you what implementing these habits actually looks like in practice through someone named Jennifer. At 38, Jennifer earned $68,000 per year as a project manager. She owned a 2021 vehicle with a $492 monthly payment. She spent approximately $380 per month at restaurants and coffee shops. Her grocery bill averaged $720 monthly, roughly a third of which expired before use. Her savings account held $2,800. She didn't feel financially irresponsible. Every individual decision seemed entirely reasonable. She simply had no margin. She didn't receive an inheritance. She didn't change careers. She changed 10 habits. Phase 1 was the vehicle. Her 2021 car was worth approximately $24,000. She sold it, retired the remaining loan balance of $17,000, and purchased a well-maintained 2017 model of the same make for $13,200 paid in cash from the equity. The $492 monthly payment disappeared. Insurance dropped by approximately $110 per month. Monthly savings from Phase 1, $600. Phase 2 was food. Jennifer selected 10 meals her household enjoyed and began rotating through them. Her grocery bill dropped from $720 to $480 over 60 days. Restaurant spending declined from $380 to $95 per month because there was always an answer to the dinner question. Monthly savings from Phase 2, $525. Phase 3 was automation. Jennifer established automatic transfers of $1,100 to her brokerage account on the first of every month. Not when the month went well, on the first. Within 4 months, it felt like a normal fixed expense. Phase 4 was the hobby. Jennifer had been an amateur photographer for 12 years. She began offering portrait sessions at $140 each. Within 9 months, She was booking 6 to 8 sessions per month, generating approximately $6,500 in additional annual income. 2 years after beginning, Jennifer's monthly investment rate was approximately $2,100. Her annual wealth-building contribution had moved from effectively zero to $25,200. Her income was unchanged. Here is how to apply this based on where you are right now. If you're in your 20s or early 30s, your most powerful asset is time. A dollar invested at 25 becomes approximately $21 by 65 at 8% returns. At 35, it becomes approximately $10. Your first action this week is to open a brokerage account and set up an automatic transfer on your next payday, any percentage. The habit matters more than the amount initially. Then, increase by 1 percentage point every 3 months. If you're in your late 30s or 40s, the math becomes urgent. According to Federal Reserve survey data, the median retirement savings for Americans aged 35 to 44 is approximately $45,000. The gap between that median and a comfortable retirement cannot be closed by time alone. Your action this month is to implement the meal rotation system. Choose 10 meals. Shop for them specifically this week. At the end of the week, calculate what you spent on food compared to a typical week. Then, take the monthly savings and redirect it automatically to your investment account. The data will make the decision simple. If you're in your 50s and feel significantly behind, recognize that habits 4 through 10, coffee, packed food, in-person shopping, stopped wardrobe purchasing, automated savings, lifestyle lag, and a monetizable hobby, can together add several hundred to over $1,000 per month to your investment capacity within 30 days. One specific action you can take right now: open your bank account and look at the last 30 days of combined spending on food away from home, coffee, and clothing. Write down that number. Then, estimate what it would be with the habits in this video applied. That difference is your monthly margin. Automate it. Here's something most personal finance content never tells you about boring habits. The reason they produce significant wealth isn't purely mathematical, though the math is real. It's that boring habits applied consistently change your relationship with spending itself. When you make coffee at home every morning for 2 years, you're not just saving $1,100 annually, you're practicing the daily habit of not paying a convenience markup. That practice rewires your default instinct across dozens of other categories. When you drive a paid-off used car, you're accumulating lived evidence that a functional older vehicle works identically to a new one. That evidence quietly dismantles the upgrade instinct across every other product category where the same psychological mechanism operates. Research on wealth accumulation behavior consistently shows that the habits in this video are not isolated causes of financial success. They're expressions of an underlying financial identity, the identity of a person who has decided what they're actually optimizing for. Not status, not novelty. Optionality. The freedom to make choices about their life based on preference rather than financial necessity. The relationship is bidirectional. The habits generate wealth. Wealth reinforces the habits. When your investment account is growing and your emergency fund is solid, the psychological pressure to signal status through consumption decreases. The car becomes transportation. The wardrobe becomes clothing. The objects shed the emotional weight of identity. And once that shift happens, maintaining the habits requires almost no effort at all. Picture yourself at age 65, sitting somewhere comfortable on a Tuesday morning. Not a vacation day, just a Tuesday. In one version of that future, you're deciding whether this is the year you spend 6 weeks in Portugal, or whether you'd rather help one of your children with a down payment, or whether you want to continue consulting part-time because you find it interesting, not because the math requires it. The morning is quiet. The numbers work. In the other version, you're adding up Social Security, subtracting the Medicare premium, calculating whether this month's budget holds. wondering how things arrived at this point when every individual decision along the way seemed entirely reasonable. Both versions of you were assembled across decades of small, daily decisions. A car decision here, a grocery list there, an automatic transfer set up one afternoon, a rotation of 10 meals that became so automatic it stopped requiring conscious thought. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would make a compelling story at a dinner party. Research published in the Journal of Financial Planning found that households implementing consistent automated savings habits over 20 years accumulated 3.4 times more wealth than households with equivalent incomes and equivalent stated intentions to save, but without the structural automation. Same income, same intelligence. The difference was whether the behavior happened automatically or required a new decision every month. The millionaires in Stanley and Danko's research were not interesting to observe from a consumption standpoint. They drove paid-off vehicles. They shopped at ordinary grocery stores. They wore the same watch for 15 years. And they were, by every financial measure, free. Most people watching this will recognize these habits. They'll think about implementing one or two, and then the video will end, and the moment will pass. A smaller group will take one specific action today. Set up the automatic transfer. Calculate the actual annual cost of their current vehicle. Write down 10 meals and commit to the rotation this week. Look at the last 30 days of food and coffee spending and see the actual number clearly for the first time. The difference between those two groups, compounded over 30 years at 8% returns, is not incremental. It's not modest. It's the difference between financial freedom and financial constraint. Built habit by habit from 10 of the most boring decisions a person can make about how they spend their ordinary days. What you do with that knowledge is what determines